not get a program? I'll come around and give you one of these if you need one. No? Well, they're up here, and I think there's some more on the table over there. All right. Excellent. Well, hey, my name is Paul Miller, and I am the coach of Appleton North Forensics. Welcome to our very first Forensics Showcase.
Yay!
I've been the coach here for 10 years now, and we have never done anything like this before. So why start now? Right? Well, I'm glad I asked that question. We decided to host tonight for a couple of reasons. One is forensics isn't usually a spectator activity. We don't get crowds of people coming to our tournaments on the weekends just to watch. So this is a pretty rare opportunity for parents and friends to come see what their students have been up to. Another reason is this Saturday is our state competition. So today becomes an excellent day to practice in preparation for that. But probably the biggest reason for tonight is recruiting. Right? We have a great team. Don't get me wrong, I love these guys. But it's probably the smallest team we've ever had. We have 5 people on the team this year, and 4 of them are seniors. We are graduating ourselves right out of existence. So I'm hoping that some of you are here from middle school that might consider joining us next year or in the future when you find yourselves at North. There is a little stand over there with some more information about forensics and a place for you to give me your name and email address if you want to sign up for the team and get on our mailing list. I would love to stay in touch with you. Which leads me to the number one question that people ask me about forensics. What is forensics? I'm glad I asked that question again. Usually when we hear the word forensics, we think of crime scene investigation, right? Well, actually the word forensics comes from a Latin word which means in a court of law, right? So forensic science is designed to gather evidence in order to prove something in court. Forensic speaking, in modern terms, applies to many different forms of public speaking. As a competitive activity, forensics is kind of like track and field. I like to use that analogy because there are a variety of activities an individual can compete in. Forensics can be divided into 2 categories, like track and field. We have speech categories, where the performer will write an original speech and present it. We also have interpretation categories, where the presenter will perform or act out a piece of literature. Students perform their selection in a room of competitors from other schools. They're then ranked by a judge. And whoever has the best ranks at the end of the day is the tournament winner for their particular category. Tonight we'll be showing you several different categories, but this is just a sampling. There are a variety of other categories that forensics has to offer that you'll not see tonight. But before we begin, let me just take 1 minute, and I promised myself I won't talk too long. Let me just take 1 minute to brag about these kids over here. A forensics tournament begins with 3 prelim rounds, right? And then if your scores are good enough, you advance to the final round. Every single member of our team has advanced to finals multiple times. In fact, all of the entries that you'll see tonight have placed at least 3rd at one of the tournaments this year. In fact, 5 of the 8 entries you're going to see tonight have placed 1st at one point in the season. So we're small, but we're quality, right? Also, we compete in the small team division, right? As you can imagine, right? But small team is actually the most competitive division because it has the largest number of schools that compete in it. The tournaments we go to are huge invitationals where teams come from all over the state. On any given Saturday, there are 20 schools competing in small team. We went to 8 tournaments this year, and we took home 1st place 6 times. The other 2 weeks we won 2nd and 3rd, right? So not exactly bad days, right? But still disappointing nonetheless. I know. So all these students deserve a night like tonight to showcase all their hard work. So thank you again for coming. All right, let's get started. Our first speaker will be presenting the category of 4-minute speaking. 4-minute is an informative speech category, which means the intent is not to persuade the audience, but just educate the audience about a topic of your choice. As the category name suggests, your speech must last 4 minutes or less. It's a perfect category for beginners, right? Not only because the speeches are short, but also because the topic options are just wide open. You can pick anything that you find particularly interesting. Speaking of beginners, right? Presenting 4-minute for us today is going to be Rob Hackett. Rob is a senior. However, this is his first year on the team. I don't know why it took him 4 years to find us.
I wish I would have found it earlier.
Right? But we're certainly glad that he did. Rob has had a very successful season. He's advanced to finals 3 times. He has attended more tournaments than any other team member. But probably his most significant contribution to the team was introducing us to the song Bills by Lunch Money Lewis, which has entertained us on many a road trip this season. So, presenting his 4-minute speech, Lasers, here is Rob Hackett.
Feel free to time if anyone wants to. Make sure I stay in the 4 minutes. I get a 15-minute grace period, though.
15 seconds.
15 seconds.
Right, yeah.
I'll just keep going. In 1898, author H.G. Wells published War of the Worlds, a science fiction thriller about a Martian alien invasion that nearly results in the annihilation of the human race. This novel was groundbreaking in many ways and inspired volumes of imaginative fiction by exploring the topic of interplanetary combat. Among its many innovations, perhaps its most significant contribution to the science fiction genre was the heat ray. For the first time, readers saw an energy beam used as a primary weapon. Since then, the laser, as it would later be known, has become a fixture of sci-fi books, films, and television. How could Buck Rogers save the galaxy without his rocket pistol? Where would Captain Kirk be without his phaser? As Han Solo so eloquently puts it, hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side. But for more than a century, laser weapons have been merely things of fantasy. Until now. Believe it or not, the U.S. Navy finally has actively deployed weaponized laser cannon, which according to CNN's Brad Lender, is capable of shooting down drones or sinking moving vessels. Let's take a look at how this weapon works, how it will be used by our military, and how the real future of combat may actually resemble fiction. It was 60 years after War of the Worlds before scientists in 1957 actually focused an energy beam and achieved light amplification by stimulated emissions of radiation, or laser for short. Fast forward another 60 years, and we finally have the weapon that H.G. Wells first imagined in the late 19th century. Introducing the Laser Weapons System, or LAWS laser cannon, a $40 million, 30-kilowatt laser pointer that can down a drone or sink a boat from unspecified, but significant ranges. This weapon works by focusing energy in the form of invisible light, generating intense heat capable of blowing out engines. It is currently deployed aboard the USS Ponce, an amphibious transport that is ready to flex its photon muscle. It also employs a computerized tracking system that can lock onto a drone in flight or track a boat while bobbing up and down in the ocean. And this entire system is controlled by a single sailor using an Xbox-style video game controller. And my parents said I was wasting my time in the basement. No, Dad, I'm preparing for my military career! Besides being totally awesome, this weapon is also quite practical. First, it's cheap. The cost of generating the necessary electricity puts this weapon's price tag at around 59 cents per shot. Compare that to missiles, which can cost upwards of $1 million each, and it's easy to see why this alternative is so appealing, especially as military budgets continue to shrink. Secondly, it's safe. A misfired missile can easily hit an unintended target, whereas a laser travels directly on target at the speed of light. Also, missile explosions often result in collateral damage, where a laser can target an individual from miles away and not harm the building they're in or even the person sitting next to them. Despite its potential, the LAWS cannon aboard the Ponce is relatively weak at only 30 kilowatts, but the Navy is already working on a larger 150 kilowatt version that it hopes to test by 2017. This new version would have the power to blast a hole in the thick hull of an enemy aircraft carrier. And as Rear Admiral Matthew Clunder puts it, the goal of these weapons is to ensure that our sailors and Marines are never in a may still be decades away, the world just took a giant leap towards preparing for any impending Martian invasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. All right. Welcome. Grab the program. Just a reminder, between pieces, by all means, grab a cookie, grab a water. If you just came here, right? So our next speech is for a category called Moments in History. Moments in History is another informative speech category. However, for this one is a little more restrictive in topic choice. Each year, the Tournament Practices Committee selects an historic era, and all of the speeches written must be about either a person or an event from that era. The era for this season is 1700 to 1750. One other interesting facet of this category is that it allows for visual supporting materials. We're actually going to see two moment speeches tonight. Our first is going to be presented by Abbey Larsen. This is Abby's 4th year on the team, and I'm really sorry to see her graduate. In her time here, she has competed in 5 different categories. Let me get this right: group interp, prose, poetry, play acting, and moments in history. And in 2013, she earned both the High Point and the High Entry awards for the season. I'll specifically miss how Abby at least pretends to laugh at my jokes, even when maybe she doesn't understand my outdated cultural references. Specifically for this speech, I made her watch MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice rap videos from the 80s, right? So hopefully that was helpful. We'll get your visual set up. So presenting her speech titled Fahrenheit versus Celsius, here is Abbey Larsen.
Coke or Pepsi, Star Wars or Star Trek, NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys. Historically, our world has seen some epic battles for dominance. One such battle is over the proper scale for temperature measurements. While Celsius seems to be the true champion, Fahrenheit refuses to be knocked down and is standing tall in the only corner of the ring he has left, the United States of America. Let's take a look at the stories behind these two men and see how their battles became one epic battle for dominance. In the end, there can only be one. Or maybe two. The word thermometer derives from the Greek word thermos for heat, metros for measure. The first thermometer was actually created way back in 1593 by Galileo. His design utilized a clear glass cylinder containing vials of liquids at various densities. These vials would rise or fall based on change in heat. At best, this could give a rough estimate of change in temperature. If all the vials floated to the top, put on a sweater. If all the vials sank to the bottom, call the fire department. For the following century, thermometers were not uncommon, but there was no standardization and very poor accuracy. One major breakthrough came in 1654, when the Grand Duke of Tuscany made a liquid thermometer by filling a blown glass tube with a mixture of alcohol and urine. Sounds like something my uncle would make. But the accuracy of this thermometer varied due to air pressure and the mild freezing and boiling points of urine that would never pass a field sobriety test. The world was still in need of a thermometer that could actually gauge extreme temperatures. Enter Daniel Gabriel Fahrenheit, or as I like to call him, Snoop Danny G. He was born in the hood of Gdansk, Poland in 1686. Everything was going great until the age of 15, when both parents died from eating a bad batch of mushrooms. You just can't make this stuff up. Down with the care of the loving Polish government, Danny G was shipped off to the Netherlands, where he became a merchant apprentice. It was here that Fahrenheit noticed the major shortcoming in the field of specialty scientific instruments. He looked at the sorry excuses for temperature gauges, thought he could do better, and started seeing dollar signs. Oh wait, this is Holland. He started seeing Dutch guilder signs. Cha-ching! Fahrenheit's first thermometer used alcohol, but his most brilliant idea came when he replaced alcohol with mercury, a liquid metal. Fahrenheit determined the scale rather simply. Danny G wanted numbers that were easily divisible, as to avoid fractions. He placed 0 as the freezing point of salt water, 32 as the freezing point of fresh water. This places body temp, or so-called blood heat, at 96 degrees. This scale made a lot of sense to a lot of people, and after publishing his proposal in the Scientific Journal of 1724, the Fahrenheit temperature scale became a standard across Europe. That is until an upstart company, Anders Celsius, came to the scene. Anders was born in Sweden in 1701, and he immediately had 2 things going for him. 1, his parents were loaded. 2, his family was wicked smart. His father was an astronomer, and his grandfather was a mathematician. Used to having everything handed him, Celsius thought the Fahrenheit scale was just too hard. It had to be made easier. So in the Scientific Journal of 1742, he published his new temperature scale, which went on increments of 10. Dang, Anders, you're so cold, it's no wonder your parents named you AC. But guess what? He screwed up. He placed 0 as the boiling point of water, and 100 as the freezing point. That's right, the higher numbers were colder than the lower ones. Everyone knew this was wrong, but no one wanted to tell him to his face. That's why immediately following Anders' death in 1744, the scale was promptly reversed to show a freezing point of 0. By the mid-1800s, Celsius had replaced Fahrenheit across Europe, and it wasn't long before the rest of the world followed suit. Today, only 5 countries name Fahrenheit as their official temperature scale. Interestingly enough, the 2 scales do converge at a -40 degrees, which, coincidentally, is both the freezing point of Mercury and the coldest temperature ever recorded in Wisconsin. So you can rest assured, whichever thermometer you buy, they will both break at the exact same time. So who wins? Perhaps the only way to settle this, and to conclude my speech, is by letting the 2 men throw down in an epic rap battle. Who wins? You decide. They call me Danny G because my name is too long, but you remember my name when I finish this song. I'm the first, the original, it was my idea. Your reign is over, you poser, get out of here. I'm the king of the ring, I'm Celsius. Got all Europe at my back, don't mess with us. From 100 to 0, your mercury is falling. You had a good run, but it's done, quit it falling. Even though you're a punk young Celsius, maybe this world's big enough for the 2 of us. We don't see eye to eye on boil or freeze, but at least we can agree on -40 degrees. You're right, Fahrenheit, we can still be friends. Like all good things, this fight too ends. And even though I'm the one with the victory, at least you had the epic moment in history. Word to your monitor.
Next up, we have our first interpretation category. Unlike speech categories, which have to be written by the presenter, interp categories define a type of literature, and the presenter is responsible for finding a piece that fits that genre and then performing it for the audience, either reading it or reciting it. This will be a prose selection, and prose requires that the selection be a cutting from a novel, a short story, or an essay. Interp entries must also include a brief introduction that identifies the author and title and sets the tone for the piece. Reading prose for us tonight is Carter Touchet. Carter's been on the team for 4 years also. This prose piece will be part of his entry for state on Saturday. And 2 years ago, Carter placed 3rd at state doing some prose reading in oral interp. Last year, he had a really good shot at winning state, but he chose to go to Europe with band rather than compete. But I'm really hoping this Saturday will be his crowning achievement. No disrespect to the rest of the team sitting there, but Carter Touchet is the finest interpreter that I've ever worked with. So reading prose for us tonight, and his piece is titled Blood Sun. Here's Carter Touchet.
The people on the block decided definitely. Jules was crazy. They say he was born with 3 teeth, and he used them to fasten himself to his mother's breast, drawing blood with the milk. They say he used to cackle They say he walked at 2 months and stared at the moon whenever it shone. His parents were always worried about him. They thought he was blind until the doctor told them it was just a vacuous stare. He never spoke a word till he was 5. Then, one night coming to supper, he sat down at the table and said, "Death!" His parents decided, Jules, he couldn't have known what the word meant. But Jules did. Richard Matheson is an acclaimed science fiction writer whose stories include scripts for The Twilight Zone and Star Trek. About my piece, the author merely said, quote, "I have no idea why I wrote that." Blood Sign by Richard Matheson. Until he was 12, Jules kept pretty much out of trouble. Of course, there was that one time when they found him undressing Olive Jones in an alley. And another time when they found him dissecting a kitten on his bed. But there were many years in between, and those scandals were forgotten. In general, he went through childhood merely disgusting people. One Saturday when he was 12, Jules went to the movies. He saw Dracula. When the show was over, he walked to the library. He found Dracula on the shelves, stuck the book down his pants, left the library, and never brought it back. He went to the library, he went to the park and sat down. He read the book through. It was late evening before he finished. He started at the beginning again, reading as he ran from streetlight to streetlight all the way home. As the days passed, he read the story over and over. He never went to school. Late at night, his mother used to take the book into the living room and show it to her husband. One night, they noticed he had underlined certain passages with dark, shaky pencil lines, like, "The lips were crimson with fresh blood, and the stream had trickled over his chin. He seized my neck and pressed my mouth to the wound." When his mother saw this, she threw the book down the garbage chute. In the morning, when Jules found the book missing, he screamed and twisted his mother's arm until she told him where the book was. Then he ran down to the cellar and dug in the piles of garbage till he found it. Coffee grounds and egg yolks on his hands and wrists. He went to the park and read it again. For a month he read the book avidly. Then he knew it so well, he threw it away and just thought about it. One day he wrote about it in school. When everyone had finished writing, the teacher asked if anyone wanted to read their composition to the class. Jules raised his hand. The teacher was surprised. "All right, pay attention, children. Jules is going to read us his composition." Jules stood up. He was excited. The paper shook in his hands.
My Ambition by Jules Dracula. When I grow up,
"I want to be a vampire." The teacher's smiling lips jerked down and out. His eyes popped wide.
I want to live forever and get even with everybody and make all the girls vampires. I want to smell of death.
"Jules!"
I want to have foul breath that stinks of dead earth. I want to be all cold and have rotten flesh with stolen blood in my veins.
"That will be all, Jules."
I want to have mites of terrible white teeth sink into my victims' necks.
"Jules! Go to your seat this instant."
I want them to slide like razors in the flesh and in the veins.
The teacher jolted to his feet. Children were shivering. None of them were giggling.
And then I want to draw my teeth out and let the blood flow easy in my mouth.
The teacher grabbed his arm. Jules tore away and ran to a corner.
And drip off my tongue and run out my lips down my victims' throats. I want to drink girls' blood.
The teacher lunged for him. He dragged him out of the corner. He screamed at him all the way to the principal's office.
That's my ambition. That's my ambition.
After that, everyone watched Jules like a hawk. People avoided his touch and look. Parents pulled their children off the street when he approached. Everyone whispered tales of him. Jules wandered the streets searching for something. He didn't know what. He never spoke. He stared down all the time. Then, one day in the park, Jules strode through the zoo. An electric shock passed through him when he saw the vampire bat. His eyes eyes grew wide, and his discolored teeth shone dully in a wide smile. From that day on, Jules went daily to the zoo and looked at the bat. He spoke to it and called it the Count. It became the one comfort in his life, the one symbol of his dreams come true. One day, Jules noticed that the bottom of the wire covering the cage had come loose. He looked around, his black eyes shifting. He didn't see anyone looking. Jules pulled the wire out and crawled under it into the cage. It was very dark. With a look of great pleasure on his thin face, Jules drew the fluttering Harry back to him. He felt his heart beating hard and his limbs trembling. Jules feverishly tore off his shirt. His lips shook. He smiled a crazy smile. He reached down into his pocket and took out a little penknife he had stolen from his mother. He opened it and ran a finger over the blade. It sliced through the flesh. With shaking fingers, he jabbed at his throat. He hacked. The blood ran through his fingers. Count, Count, he cried in frenzied joy. Drink my red blood. Drink me, drink me. The blood ran across his shoulders and across his hairless chest. He started to moan. His stomach heaved. The black bat on his neck silently lapped his blood. Jules felt his life seeping away. It was hard to breathe. He opened his mouth to gasp in the air. Suddenly, his mind was filled with terrible clarity. With a strangled cry, he reached up and tore away the furry, throbbing bat. He flung it away from him. It came back, fanning his face with its vibrating wings. And Jules managed to get the door open, but then lurching into the dark yard, he fell on his face in the long grass blades. He tried to call out for help, but no sounds came from his lips. He heard the fluttering wings, then suddenly, they were gone. Strong fingers lifted him gently. Through dying eyes, Jules saw the tall, dark man whose eyes shone red like rubies. My son, the man said.
Next, we have another interp category, play acting. As the title would suggest, requires the presenter to act out a scene from a play. This is one of the few categories that allow students to work together as a team. This particular team has been working together now for 3 years. And I gotta tell you, their experience really shined this year. They showed up the first day of practice with their piece chosen, cut, and memorized. That never happens. And as we were practicing it and blocking it, I would give them a direction one time, and they would have it solid for the rest of the year going forward. So it's been a real pleasure working with two people so experienced in this category. I'm really going to miss you guys next year. But presenting their play, All the Greatest Books Abridged, here is Kayla Litwin and Abbey Larsen.
All right, everyone, settle down. Stop your private conversations. Put your personal items away. Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all to class. I'm your professor. Now, we all know why we are here. This is a repeat course for those of you who did not pass your Western Literature requirement last term. The school board requires that you take this course in order to graduate. Graduation is in 12 minutes.
Sorry I'm late.
You should be. As many of you know, this is our very late student teacher, Kate. Where were you?
Reading Lord of the Rings. Man, can you believe they made a book out of that movie?
Kate! Now, we have an awful lot of material to cover in a very short period of time. So as you can see, all the great books are here. But if you take a look at your syllabus, you will notice that we will not be covering every great book.
No, only the 60 greatest books. Wait a second, Lord of the Rings is not on here.
Nope, nor is Communist Manifesto. No fantasy.
it's too dark to read.
Good point. Famed British composer Ringo Starr once said, books are good. You can learn from books.
Wow, what profundity.
What does that mean?
It means get on with it, we have a play to perform. All the great books, abridged
By Reed Martin.
and Austin Titchener. Now it's our goal to make these great works of literature come alive for you.
The only way to make a story come alive is through the magic of theater. And that's why I love Charles Dickens.
Presenting A Christmas Carol.
Bah humbug.
Then merrily valley such is Christmas Eve.
I suppose you want Christmas Day off as well?
If it's convenient.
It is not convenient.
If you don't give me that time off, I'll be forced to reveal your dark secret.
Which dark secret?
That you and Jacob Marley were more than just business partners.
Damn that Jacob Marley. And that extra bottle of wine.
Nice! Dickens down. Too many left to go.
Very good. I'd like to move to the great poets now.
Oh, I can help with that. I will not do it in a boat. I will not do it with a...
Now, I know Dr. Seuss makes reading fun, but as you'll see, reading and fun have very little to do with literature. Shoot, I left my papers.
Oh, I'll get them, Professor.
Thank you, Kate. You see, I made it my life's goal to create a collection of the world's greatest poems.
Here you go, Professor.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my humble collection of the world's greatest poems. Toilet paper. Extra large Vaseline.
Wow.
Intensive care load. What is
Don't
this?
read that. That's my shopping list.
This is not what I need.
Oh, your collection of poems is on the back.
Oh. Don't worry. We'll figure this out. We'll do it together.
Okay.
There once was a man from Nantucket whose strings were so long he could pluck it.
He shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth. There was no there.
And in the depths of his despair cried,
Fie on the person who put me here
In the ballad of Reddingdale, where each man kills the thing he loves.
and loves the thing he nails. Oh.
Captain, my captain, we go down the sea in ships, and in Xanadu did Kubla Khan dare eat a
Let us go, then you and I, as evening spread out amongst the sky.
skylight burning bright.
First star I see,
Two
two.
roadside birch in a wood today.
How do I love thee? Let me count the way.
Into the Valley of Dolls rode the 600 on the 18th of April in 1770.
6 strong bones led the big parade, and I was staying alive, staying alive.
Oh, body sways music, oh, brightening glance. How can we tell the dancer from the dance?
I know why the cage bird sings. The body electric, like a maniac on the floor.
Now there's no joy in Mudville now that Casey knows the score.
Mighty Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Both the Raven.
Baltimore.
Thank you.
Wow, nice save. Not much a collection, more a medley, really.
Moving on to the second novel of the syllabus, Louisa May Alcott's Little Women.
Ooh, I've got this one, Professor. In the book Little Women, the mother's name is Marmee, which is short for Marmalade because she's an extremely sweet woman. As well as coach and general manager, she's assembled a strong team with Meg, Amy, Beth, Edith, and Flojo, the book's narrator. At the beginning of the novel, the Little Women lose their best player, their father, to free agency. The Civil War's broken out like everyone else. He's signed with the Yankees. Fortunately, the boy Laurie lives next door. He's an orphan, a free agent. The Little Women sign him, and the league allows him because, let's face it, Laurie, girl's name. At this point, Beth catches scarlet fever and is penalized 15 yards and her life. They also learn that the father has taken ill and been placed on the disabled list. At this point, the Little Women reacquire the father, nurse him back to health by pumping him full of steroids. And he goes on to hit 73 home runs and win the World Series. That's right, there's no I in team, no you would win, and the Little Women live happily ever after.
Wow, that was an excellent description.
Wow, you don't have to sound so surprised, Professor.
Okay, I'm sorry, just basically, I thought you were illiterate.
I'm not illiterate. My parents were married.
Ugh. All right, it's the end of the first half and time for your midterm exam. Kate, please distribute the papers.
optimistic.
I'm at war.
And I'm at peace.
Page 135, Russian nicknames are explained. The suffix ovich means son of. Hence, Ivanovich means son of Ivan.
Page 198. Here decides to assassinate Napoleon. That bitch-o-bitch.
Page 2002, spirituality keeps men from becoming animals.
2 legs bad. 2 legs bad.
Animals, not Animal Farm.
Oh. Page 3333. Human behavior is irrational. It'll never be explained.
Finally, page 1,976,225. Second paragraph, 2/3 of the way down on the page. On his deathbed, Andre comes to realize that life and death, love and hate, war and peace are not opposites. They are unities.
Wow. Oh, Professor, look at the time. We still have all these books left to cover. These kids need to graduate. We need to do a review.
We don't have time.
Just give me 1 minute. I can encapsulate all these great books in a single sentence.
No, you can't.
Try me.
Okay. The origin of species.
We come from apes.
Interpretation of dreams.
I love my mother.
The Tao.
Well, it was down 300 points last week.
Not the Tao, the Tao.
Oh, desire nothing.
Walden.
Simplify your life.
1984.
Don't trust the government.
Animal Farm.
Don't trust the pigs.
Feminine Deceit.
Don't trust the pigs.
Alice in Wonderland.
Don't do drugs.
On the Road.
Do drugs.
The Odyssey.
Don't write books in Greek. Nobody can understand.
Ulysses.
Don't write books in English. Nobody can understand.
Heart of Darkness.
He dies at the end.
Camille.
She dies at the end.
Sunset Boulevard.
Dies at the beginning.
The Bible.
Comes back to life at the end.
The Great Gatsby.
Rich people are screwed up.
Oliver
The
Twist.
workers are screwed.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
The mockingbirds are screwed.
Picture of Dorian Gray.
Don't be so obsessed with you.
Moby Dick.
Don't be so obsessed with the whale.
Don Quixote.
Sanity is overrated.
Harry Potter.
Huh. Just overrated.
Star Wars.
Not a book, but Darth Vader's his father.
Beowulf.
Don't make us read that crap.
Gone with the Wind.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Finished.
Well, we didn't want to tell you this before, but this has been a pass-fail course. Please distribute the diplomas. Kate! Congratulations, you all graduate.
Woo!
Well, now would be an excellent time to grab a cookie. Our next, see? Right? Follow her lead. Our next presentation is going to be the category of poetry. Poetry is very similar to prose, except you need to choose a poem as your selection. For this one, we actually decided to do a collection of poetry centered around a theme. Reading poetry for us will again be Carter Touchet. I'll give you an idea of how Carter Touchet's involvement in the team has grown over the years. Many tournaments offer you the option of multi-entering. That is, you can compete in more than one category at a single tournament. Carter's freshman year, he attended 3 tournaments and single entered at each tournament for a total of 3 entries. This year, he attended 7 tournaments, often triple entering, and has accumulated 17 entries this season. State on Saturday will be his 18th entry, and that's a team record. That's a team record. So he's a busy guy. He's a busy guy. Here, reading his poem, his collection, titled Nerd Swag. Here's Carter Touchet.
I'm only a nerd when I look into the mirror because I'm actually cool. The chess player of the year. This tape on my glasses is because I got into a fight. Some kid dissed Pokemon last night. My pants aren't high waters, they're male capris. The drug I take is Benadryl for all my allergies. And I don't need a girlfriend because they play hard to get. But I do date a model via the internet. Every time I watch Star Wars, I shed a little tear. But like I said, I'm only a nerd. When I look into the mirror, the Urban Dictionary defines a nerd as one whose IQ exceeds his weight. I like to think of him as a high school student who's not afraid to be smart, who overcomes the pressure of peers by accepting himself, even if it terrifies him. Nerd Swag, a celebration in verse including I'm Only a Nerd by Evan James Griffin. Perhaps I like being a Nerd by Thomas Key, The Square Root of 3 by David Feinberg, and Teen Movie by Rudy Francisco. Mayhaps I like being a nerd. It may sound absurd that I reference things to Doctor Who, Portal 2, Comic-Con, in Klingon. I'm the one who knows the rules to D&D. I'm a paladin, mother trucker, roll the die and come at me. I know all the Disney princesses. I have no shame, though 3 younger sisters, so I'm not entirely to blame. Mulan is the best, by the way. Don't even deny it. All of the internet references are be mine. If you don't understand, I'll tell you a second time. I don't always flaunt my nerdiness, but when I do, it's a poem. I'm the kid who has Tron discs and knows how to throw them. Use the force and move away from the screen. My Minecraft skills are like you've never seen. I'll Foos Roda the entire competition. It'll be like an original Pokemon card in mint condition. You shall not pass! Suit up with all ensued class, for the nerdom will grow inconceivably fast.
I'm sure that I will always be a lonely number, like the square root of 3. The 3 is all that's good and right. Why must my 3 keep out of sight? Beneath the vicious square root sign, I wish instead I were a 9. For a 9 could thwart this evil trick with just some quick arithmetic. I know I'll never see the sun as 1.7321. Such is my reality, sad irrationality. When hark! What is this I see? Another square root of 3. As quietly co-waltzing by, together now we multiply to form a number we prefer, rejoicing as an integer. We break free from our mortal bonds with the wave of magic wands. Our square root signs become unglued. Your love for me is hope renewed.
If you were to find an old calendar, like strapped into a hospital bed, tied down by its weekends, and then C-section the belly of 1999, you'd find a 17-year-old version of me. Back when I was a tsunami of awkward moments splashing against the shoreline called Rochelle Moss, a young lady who introduced my jaw to the floor whenever she floated into our first period classroom. I mean, this girl was a dandelion seed straddling a wish, a dream I never thought would turn flesh for wire hangers like me. Let's just say we don't become captain of the football team because the only thing that we are good at is stopping ourselves from saying, I like you, to a girl who holds the remote control to our smiles. She has the power of fast forward. She is capable of slow motion, but it seems the only button she ever pushes is mute. We are blurry silhouettes against the backdrop of everything popular, often wearing our skin like a costume of someone we didn't feel comfortable pretending to be anyways. We swallow earthquakes and then tremble at the smell of perfume. We are bashful, tongue-tied, and nervous in high definition. So the question is, if a boy falls for a girl that is out of his league and there is no one around to hear him, does he make a sound? The answer is hell. And the first 2 letters, nothing. When I was a senior in high school, I was a pocket full of chalk dust. I was elevator music on a CD that started like a Volkswagen with really bad transmission. At this age, I was a ballot box stuffed full of everyone's opinions except for my own. My swagger was like watching a Walkman trying to swallow a DVD. At this age, my mouth was a door with hinges covered in rust, and I walked as if I was concerned with how the ground would feel about my footsteps. And if I could just find a way to write a letter to that boy who is an old sweater with itchy sleeves that I will someday grow out of, I would say there will be days when you feel like a peacock with no feathers. You will feel flightless and undeserving of attention, but listen.
You have to stop getting out of bed like you're an oil spill. You're not a flat tire at 2 a.m., so stop acting like you're an accident. Rudy, you're not an accident. Rudy, you're not an accident. Rudy, you're an apple in a pine tree in a room full of lemons. And you come from a long line of Swiss Army pocket knives, men who are small, sharp, and dangerous when not handled carefully. Some days, I wish that my arms were 12 years long, so I could reach all the way back there, grab you by the shoulders, punch you in the chest, and say, listen, you are the main character in a movie I watch every time I see the inside of my eyelids. I told myself a million times that I wouldn't spoil the ending, but I will tell you this. Your story starts off really slow. But it does get better. You don't have to believe me. Someday you'll see for yourself. And when you see Rochelle Moss at the senior prom, ignore that washing machine in your stomach. Tell her she looks beautiful tonight. Extend your arm like a drawbridge to a castle that no one has visited in years. And say to her, will you dance with me?
Next up is our final Moments in History speech. This one will be presented by Eric Bakken. Eric is a sophomore, and our sole underclassman on the team. Please don't quit. Awesome. This is Eric's second year on the team, and he's been very successful the last 2 years. Every forensicator's goal is to go straight ones. That means you were ranked first by your 3 consecutive morning judges. It's a perfect score. This year, Eric went straight ones 3 weeks in a row. And at the Kakana tournament, he actually went straight ones both in prelims and in finals, which is really hard to do. We've only ever had one other person on the team accomplish that. So yeah, pretty impressive. He's also a bit of a legacy. He's the third Bakken to be on the team. And I understand there are no more Bakkens coming. So we have a lot riding on him. But presenting his speech on the assassination of Charles XII